Hello everybody, welcome into my Week 4 NFL predictions. So far this season have done fairly well. Currently sit at 31-17 against the spread and 33-15 straight up, hoping to continue those strong marks here. Let's dive right into the Week 4 action, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Atlanta Falcons. This is the London game going on this week. Should be a good one. Jaguars coming off a tough loss, and I do think they haven't quite looked up to what they had hoped they would be so far this season. The Falcons have had an up and down start. Good job running the ball. Were able to come back against the Packers. Did fall last week to the Lions. Should be a really good game. I do think the Jaguars do bounce back and win this one, though, 26-21 in a good game. I think Bijan Robinson gets going a little bit for the Falcons, but ultimately Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley, this offense starts to figure things out and finally have a really solid week. Then we have perhaps the game of the week, the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Two teams that are very hot right now. The Bills coming off a massive win over the Commanders, 37-3. The Dolphins obviously put up 70 points on the Broncos last week. So certainly some high-scoring offenses, some defenses that are playing well as well. So this should be a fantastic one. I am going to go with the Dolphins, 31-28, and a really good game. I do think ultimately, the Dolphins are underdogs in this one. I do think that they win and cover that spread, obviously, but should be a awesome game to watch. In a less awesome game to watch, we have the Broncos and the Bears, the two lowest rated teams in my power rankings for this week. The Bears just have not looked like a competent team on either side of the ball. The Broncos gave up 70 points, so clearly their defense is in a bad spot, and the offense is not terrible, but it's sputtering as well. I'm going to go with the Broncos in this one, 27-20. I do think they cover the spread and do ultimately win this game, though I am not overly impressed by either of these teams, to say the least. In another really good game, we have the Browns and the Ravens, a tough AFC North divisional matchup. The Ravens are kind of ravaged by injuries right now. Obviously, the Browns lost Nick Chubb as well, so this should be an interesting game if we are able to see Deshaun Watson have another strong performance like he did last week. The defense was absolutely awesome for them against Tennessee. This Ravens team has been a little bit up and down. They still seem to be figuring out the offense, and a lot of their big pieces are missing, like we mentioned before. I think the Browns do win this one. I am kind of believing in the Browns hype a little bit this year just because of their defense. I have them winning 23-20 and having them win this game and cover that narrow spread. Next, the Bengals and the Titans. This Bengals team got their first win of the season last week. Joe Burrow's clearly not 100%, but this defense looked ferocious. They got Jamar Chase going as well, so that was a big step for this team. Burrow didn't suffer any setbacks. This Tennessee team got absolutely ran over by the Browns last week. Only scored 3 points. Ryan Tannehill just has not looked like a good quarterback by any means. The defense has its strengths, especially up front, but the secondary is having its struggles this year. I think the Bengals win this one relatively comfortably, 24-16, and certainly have them covering that spread as well. Next, the Colts and the Rams. These teams are in a very interesting spot. Anthony Richardson should be back for the Colts this week. He has practiced and does look like he is going to be able to go. So that would be a big thing for the Colts, even though they did win with Gardner Minshew last week. Richardson really just adds that explosiveness to the offense and just another dimension what they can do, especially in the running game. That is a big get, obviously, when you get your franchise quarterback back. And then we also have the Rams, who are playing decently. The offense sputtered a bit against the Bengals. The Bengals ran a lot of press coverage against the Rams wide receivers. Puka Nacua didn't have as good of a game as he had the first couple of weeks. I'll be interested to see if that trend continues. The defense is pretty good, but this offensive line is a complete disaster for the Rams. I think this is a low-scoring game. I do think the Colts end up winning, though, 19-14. I have them winning and covering that spread. Next, the Buccaneers and the Saints. The Saints, obviously, without Derek Carr, moving over to Jameis Winston, who just adds so much volatility to this team. They could absolutely have an offensive explosion if Jameis has one of his good days. They obviously have the receivers to do it with Olave, Shaheed, Michael Thomas as well. This defense is playing really well. The Buccaneers have a good defense as well, though. Baker Mayfield has been playing decently as well, so I'll be curious to see what they are able to do. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers in an upset, 21-19. I think that this will be a sneakily fun game to watch. Really excited to see how this one turns out. Then we have the Eagles and the Commanders, a big spread, 31-20, though, is going to be my score prediction. I think the Commanders' magic has worn off just a little bit. The offense did not look good. Sam Howell had an atrocious game last week against the Bills. Obviously, he can certainly bounce back. I think he's a talented player, but it's all about the consistency, which they haven't necessarily had offensively. This Eagles team is just pretty much the definition of consistency. Even when they're not on their best game, they're going to have a really good offensive output. The defense is ferocious to play against. I think this team is just way more talented than the Commanders. I have them winning pretty comfortably, 31-20 in this NFC East divisional matchup. Next, two 0-3 teams battling it out, the Vikings and the Panthers. I don't think that many people expected the Vikings to be 0-3 at this point. The Panthers obviously hasn't helped with Bryce Young being out last week, but this team is not in a great place. I do think the Vikings are much more talented. They have a great variety of weapons on offense with Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. You have some players at running back. If they can get any run game going, that would be huge for them as well. This defense has its holes. Brian Flores, I do think, will get the most out of these guys, whatever that talent level might be. I do think the Vikings are going to win this one 27-22. I think the Panthers really need to get more creative when it comes to their offensive play calling, especially once Bryce Young gets back. That needs to be a huge thing that they overhaul because it just has been a bit stale so far for the Panthers, and things do need to change. Next, the Steelers and the Texans. This one is going to be an upset pick for me. I'm going to go with the Texans winning 24-20. CJ Stroud has looked really, really good so far. Hasn't thrown an interception. Has looked really good when anticipating passes, getting the ball out on time, being accurate, especially within the structure of the offense. He is really making plays right now. I think that the Steelers offense is still trying to figure things out. The defense is going to be great, and they're going to keep this team in games regardless of their opponent. It's not like the Texans have a super high-powered offense or a great defense. I just feel like the Texans are on the right path. I think D'Amico Ryans is a great coach, and I do believe in what they are building. I think they get an upset win in a very close one, 24-20, and they squeak out an upset here in exciting fashion. Next, the Chargers and the Raiders. This Chargers team finally got a win in a nail-biter down the stretch against the Vikings. Raiders have looked a lot less impressive than their Week 1 victory against the Broncos, even though that game was close as well. This offense just looks a little bit stale, a little bit uninspired, and the defense is really not talented. So that really limits kind of what this team is able to do. Chargers defense has been really terrible as well, though, so maybe this could be a bit of a shootout. Ultimately, I do have the Chargers winning 26-23. Divisional games are always tough. They're typically going to be closer than you expect. I think the Chargers are a much better team. I obviously think Justin Herbert gives them a huge advantage in this matchup as well. But I think it will be close. I think the Raiders ultimately cover the spread, but I think that the Chargers win this game. Next, the Cowboys and the Patriots, two of the best defenses in the NFL, so well coached by Dan Quinn and Bill Belichick. So much talent across the roster as well. And I do think both of these offenses are trying to figure things out. For the Cowboys, I think it's been a little bit underwhelming. Last week was really the first week the defense wasn't able to be super effective and take over the game against a lowly Cardinals team. And this Cowboys offense could not pull their weight. They could not dig the defense out of a hole. Even though the defense has carried them multiple times before, the offense really couldn't take control, and they couldn't prove to be the deciding factor in getting a win over the Cardinals team that just is not as talented as the Cowboys. So I think that was a bit of a cause for concern. I think the Cowboys are still an incredibly good team, but the offense really has to get going, and they're not going to have an easy task against Bill Belichick and this defense. For the Patriots, the offense still lacks explosiveness. That's nothing new, but it's a much better called unit with no more Matt Patricia there calling plays. So I think that Mac Jones and this offense have been going in the right direction, but still a long way to go. I think this is a low-scoring defensive game. I have the Cowboys winning 19-14, but the Patriots covering that spread. Next, we have the 49ers and the Cardinals. Cardinals have looked really, really impressive for the level of talent on their roster. I have to give Jonathan Gannon and this team a lot of credit for playing really hard, but against one of, if not the most talented rosters and the deepest rosters in the league against the 49ers, I think this will be a really tough test, however. Christian McCaffrey has just gotten off to an electric start to the season. His offense has been efficient outside of him, but McCaffrey is really carrying this offense and this load for this team. Then obviously the defense is just a juggernaut as well. Like I said, the Cardinals do deserve a lot of credit for how they've played. Do you think perhaps they could come in, score a late touchdown, and keep this game a little bit closer than it looks? I have it being 31-20. Obviously, it is a huge spread, so I actually have the Cardinals covering it, but I do think the 49ers win this one relatively comfortably. Next, the Chiefs and the Jets. This was going to be an exciting game, full of offense, and now with Zach Wilson being the Jets quarterback, this just looks like an uneven matchup unless Zach Wilson and this Jets offense is really able to find their gear, which I certainly wouldn't count on. I just don't think they're going to be able to score enough points to keep up with this Chiefs team. Obviously, the Jets defense is great, but this Chiefs offense is going to get something. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, they're just too talented to not put points on the board. And Zach Wilson and this Jets offense have not proven that they can do the same. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one, 28-17. I have them covering that spread and winning relatively convincingly. Then we have the Seahawks and the Giants. No idea really why the Seahawks are underdogs in this game. I get that the Giants are at home, but this Giants team has looked really bad so far. Their only win was a huge comeback victory against the Cardinals, who, like we said, are not the most talented team by any means, and they've been blown out the other 2 weeks by admittedly really good teams in Dallas and San Francisco, but I just don't think they have earned that benefit of the doubt to this point, while the Seahawks have looked really solid the past few weeks. Obviously, you lose week 1, but you come back with 2 big wins against, obviously, the Lions in week 2, and then the Panthers last week as well. I thought Geno Smith and this offense looked really efficient and really effective in those games. Giants team does have the talent on the defensive line to cause some havoc against a really banged-up Seahawks offensive line, but I do think that the Seahawks should be favored in this one. I am going to go with them 28-23. I have them winning this one on the road on Monday Night Football. That's going to do it for my Week 4 predictions. Let me know what you think down below. If you like this kind of content, please hit that subscribe button as well. So close to 1,000 subscribers. I put out mock drafts, weekly prediction videos, power rankings. I'm going to get into some film breakdowns as well, so really looking forward to that. Please, if you're interested, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button while you're down there as well. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one.